Good afternoon and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is Matt St. Charles. We're here to talk about Indiana basketball coming off a 2-0 homestand with one super exciting overtime game. Little controversial. We'll get to that. And then a hyper efficient second half win against Oregon on Monday night. But I do want to start off with something special. On Monday night, Indiana had the reunion and 50th anniversary of the 1976 undefeated team. On Saturday, they did honor the 1974-75 team that only lost one game, went undefeated in the Big Ten, lost one game because Scott May got hurt against Kentucky. Came back the next year, went undefeated, won it all. Arguably the greatest basketball team, college basketball team in history. It's the last undefeated college basketball team. I have started the petition to not call them the all-time March Madness team because I think it's a little disrespectful. The all-time March Madness team to me, Matt, is if you put all our group text guys on a team, we go 0-32, win the conference tournament, and then win it all by hitting just some ridiculous shots like the old college slam. So I do think they need to change that moniker to, probably the greatest college basketball team of all time instead of, because they were great all year round, not just in March. So that was really cool. They had Quinn Buckner, Tom Abernathy was there. Kent Benson was back. Bobby Wilkerson was there. Some great stories. I have the video up on our YouTube channel as well from their press conference. And then they were honored at halftime and announced that Bob Knight is going to get a statue to go along with his team in the south lobby of Assembly Hall. And I know there's some people going, well, why did IU take this long? Bob Knight did not want a statue of himself at Assembly Hall. The family has to sign off on it. And even Pat Knight said in the release, his dad probably wouldn't have signed off on it, but it's not for his dad. It's for the fans and the team to commemorate that. I believe they are also naming the street between Indiana and Fee on 45-46, that bypass over there, Bob Knight Lane or something. They're naming it after Bobby Knight. I don't know what the official name of it will be, but super special weekend honoring those guys. But Indiana does go 2-0 on the homestand, which they needed to do. They've won 5 out of their last 6 games, and the one loss is probably one they should have won at USC out on the West Coast, where they just didn't shoot the ball as well as they have been. And all that stuff. Matt, you were at the game against Wisconsin. Indiana wins in overtime, does not hit a field goal in the last, 10:05 of gameplay. So going back to 5 minutes and about 5 seconds left in the second half, and somehow pull that out. Tell us about that game.
Yeah, that was a very, very interesting one. When you just look at the style of play, I talked a bit about Indiana. 52% of their field goals come from behind the arc. And that game, for the large part of the second half, as Darren DeVries kind of said, when Wisconsin wanted to start switching more than they did in the first half, Sam Alexis became the focal point on offense. And I didn't obviously cover Sam at Florida last year, but I covered him his 2 years at Chattanooga, his freshman and sophomore year. He was never scoring with his back to the basket. And in the last 2 or 3 games, he's found this post fadeaway in the middle of the lane that has never been part of his game. And I mean, he was just phenomenal. And when you look at Wilkerson, was ice cold in that game for the most part. Even when he kind of took over down the stretch, there was no field goals, or there was one layup that he made. But Sam Alexis was the guy on offense, 9 of 10 from the field for 19 points to go along with 7 rebounds, and he had 5 blocks. And I kind of mentioned how Wisconsin and Indiana are very similar coming into this game. And for the first time it felt like all season against a power opponent, Indiana was dictating the physicality in the paint, and it all started with Sam Alexis. And then, of course, you did kind of blow up down the stretch at the under 4 timeout. I don't remember what they were up. I want to say they were up. I don't remember what they were up, but you give up a 10-0 run to go down 4. And I think what we're starting to see is no matter how you get there, if you're in striking distance at the end of the game, Lamar Wilkerson can get you to the finish line, whether it's shooting 8 free throws in the last 2 minutes of regulation and overtime or scoring 41 points against Oregon. I thought Enright was, again, phenomenal in that game. He just keeps proving himself to be an invaluable presence, a guy that just can't come off the floor. He played 40 minutes in that one. Had to score more than he usually likes to. But, again, the charge on Boyd down the stretch kind of decided that one. And it was just a great overall kind of team performance and adapting to the way Wisconsin wanted to play and to, not being hot from the field. You shoot 5 of 22 and still find a way to win. So definitely a big bubble game for both teams. And so for Indiana to pull that one out was pretty massive.
Yeah, I was driving to the airport out Colorado and listened to Fish and Eric on the call. It goes into overtime, pulling into the rental car place, and I'm just sitting in the car, and they're looking at me like, "Why are you sitting in the car?" Well, it's 15 seconds left of overtime. But you're right. Indiana, when you thought of this team preseason, this wasn't one of those games that you'd think they win shooting 5 of 22. Usually they're up in the 30s on three-point attempts, and then just to make 5 of them, it's just not the style of play that you thought that, hey, if Indiana's going to win games, they could play that way. So it's really good to see that they could kind of win not playing their brand of basketball per se. And then, I still think it's super impressive that they didn't score a basket in the last 10 minutes of the game and still won. And we've seen them late in games against UCLA, Purdue, a little bit of USC missed those free throws. They hit them on Saturday. So that was really – yeah, go ahead.
Both of those West Coast games that were close, what it became down the stretch was Lamar Wilkerson just decided he's going to get to the basket. And against UCLA, it resulted in a lot of layups. Against Southern Cal, kind of the same thing, but Wisconsin just kept fouling him. And, credit to him for making all 8 of those free throws, but you can just tell when a game like that comes down the stretch, he's just going to take over one way or another.
Yeah, Jeff Rabjohn's put out a tweet. I sent it to you today, and he's stomping hard for Wilkerson to be on all these national awards and things like that. Rabby's tweet was, Indiana's Lamar Wilkerson's the only player in the country in high major college basketball with an efficiency rating over 120, a usage rating of 25, and more than 70 made three-pointers. And he's been, I would say, pretty consistent outside of a few games where his shots just haven't been falling. He's added the dribble drive and going to the basket a little bit more than just spot-up shooting and shooting threes, which it makes him really hard to defend. And we'll get into the Oregon game here in a second. But, you look at that, some of those plays, especially in the second half, where they were doing back cuts and finding him for layups and dunks in the lane, now you can see the offense cooking. Let's get to that Oregon game. Man, it was a rock fight early that turned into just an absolute offensive clinic. Both teams, I think, in the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game were shooting under 30%. It was a weird 8:30 tip-off time coming off of a I don't know. You don't usually see a lot of college basketball teams play Saturday and then Monday, so maybe fatigue was a bit there. But Lamar Wilkerson missed his first 5 shots and then finished with 41 points. And I was looking at the stat broadcast, and he'd made 5 straight, and then he missed one, and then he'd make 6 straight. He finished 13 of 20. So he hit 13 out of his last 15 shots. He was 6 of 12 from 3-point range, 9 of 11 from the line. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, only 2 turnovers, and probably the biggest thing, only 2 fouls. But you wrote about it on Monday night, Matt. What made this offense so good? Because there was a point in time in that second half they were shooting 90% from the field, and this wasn't like the first 5 minutes of the second half. This was well into the second half. They were, I think, 15 to 17.
Yeah, well, I mean, Darren DeVries talked about it post game. I'm trying to find the quote, but he just said basically that their execution when they came out to start the second half was amazing. Their off-ball screening, their cutting, everything was really hard. And I'm trying to think of like the sequence of it, but I think it started with Tucker DeVries getting a layup on a back door or on a back screen. Sam Alexis got a layup. I think that was on a cross screen down in the post, and then Tucker gets a layup on the back screen, like I mentioned. And then now you're just kind of playing chess with Oregon, which, like you kind of mentioned early in the game, it was sort of a rock fight because, playing a Dana Altman defense on one day of prep is not easy. So whatever happened in that locker room at halftime for Indiana, they came out executing like probably the best I've seen so far this season. For the majority of the second half, they were at 90% from the field. And then a couple of, maybe long threes that were slightly greedy, but given how Wilkerson was shooting, I would take him too. Brought it down closer to 80. But the way that they were screening and cutting hard and getting open, and then, when Oregon slides back into the paint to guard that screen, you run a flare for Tucker out on the 3-point line, and then you've got Lamar and Tucker going, which is just impossible to stop. And then Tucker said, let's see what he said post game.
He said, "Just feed the dude." I think.
Yeah.
He makes it so much easier. He says when you got him going like that, it makes things really easy for everybody else too. I think it started when he hits 1 or 2 and then gets it going.
Yeah.
And then they start calling plays for him, and he hits a couple more. And then he just said, "We just get out of the way and let him cook." So the second half, and I think what we've seen, at least this is my view from whatever row we sit in, I used rotations really tight. It seems like they do get fatigued, and it's not a knock on strength and conditioning, but we've seen these second half leads kind of disappear because they kind of get stuck on offense, and it's almost like if you're playing YMCA ball and you're like, man, I'm just tired. We're just going to slow it down and walk through the offense just to catch our breath for a couple possessions. It did not seem like that happened much on Monday, but I really like how DeVries uses his timeouts, tries to get to those media timeouts as well. And then it's no surprise that after a rest at halftime, and DeVries is a good coach. We both know that, and he is good at the X's and O's. But I think it was a perfect storm of, hey, we now have fresh legs. And they figured something out with Sam Alexis, and Coach DeVries admitted that on Monday night as well, saying, it took us a little bit to figure it out, but we figured it out. And Reed Bailey hasn't been playing as much, and they're just letting Sam Alexis do his stuff. And I think that has really helped the offense too. It gives you that third or fourth guy who could be a threat with the ball. Coming into the season, there's a lot of criticism over Connor Enright's ability to handle the point guard position. He's been awesome. I mean, he is a guy you would hate to play against and would love to have on your team. He is, I don't know, I say it lovingly, annoying. He is an annoying basketball player, but and that's why he drew the foul against Wisconsin and stuff like that. He just bugged somebody so much that he put his shoulder into him and threw him down. But he's not turning the ball over. He gets the ball to playmakers. And then you have, everybody has to be guarded out on the court. And the offense is really starting to flow. And I thought kind of what went under the radar, and I didn't get a chance to ask Coach DeVries, is Nick Dorn got going in late in that second half too. And he got fouled on a three-pointer and hit those 3 free throws. And I put in the game thread, I think. I said, man, hopefully that unlocks him. He looked tired on the West Coast games. Maybe the flu went through that locker room. But, his first 3 off the back of the rim, which probably means your legs are okay. And then he got into rhythm. So hopefully you get close to a week off. You don't play until Sunday at Illinois, that he gets his legs underneath him, but he's in rhythm shooting the ball. What did you think about Dorn's second half? And then we'll get into the road trip coming up.
Yeah, I think that was good to see from Dorn. Like you mentioned, was amazing against UCLA. Kind of went cold against SC. And then coming back against Wisconsin was not great either. But I think what's important to notice is what got Nick Dorn going in the second half was he got to the free throw line. Granted, it's not because he took it to the rim or anything. He got fouled because Oregon committed the cardinal sin and fouled the three-point shooter. So he got 3 free throws. But being able to see the ball go into the basket and then you draw something up for him, he gets a 3 in the corner, and now he's going again. He's got confidence. It's something I would like to see from Dorn. Obviously, coming into the game, everybody knows he's one of the main shooters on the team, and, they're looking out for him from outside early. I'd like to see him continue to attack those closeouts, get to the rim, get to the foul line early so that your first shots aren't, 25-footers, that kind of stuff, that you establish some kind of rhythm. Like you see Lamar Wilkerson do this all the time. If he's out of rhythm, he likes to get to, a one dribble mid-range out of the pick and roll, or he likes to get all the way to the rim, get fouled, either an and one, or see the ball go through the rim and get to the free throw line, and then he's flowing. So definitely encouraging to see Dorn kind of re-find what made him and this team so successful over the last couple of weeks. But I think there's a way for him to not go through those cold spells and to get more into a rhythm early in the game so that down the stretch he can be more of a threat.
Yeah, I think people forget he missed all of preseason, and he missed the first handful of games. So he hit that physical wall there. Indiana comes out of that 6-game stretch 5-1. They've boosted their tournament resume in a spot where there were tough games, but they weren't what's coming up. And getting the Purdue win at home was huge and gave them confidence. Winning at UCLA in overtime, just how they won that game just made it so much bigger than it probably meant metrically. But you have a trip to Illinois on Sunday at 1 p.m. Illinois is coming off of 2 overtime losses. The first one was at number 10 Michigan State. Second one last night against Wisconsin, 90-90. Seems like every Big Ten game is going into overtime this week. I don't know if they made a deal with Peacock or Fox or whatever, but man, every game seems like it's going into overtime. IU's had what, 2?
2,
and Purdue had one last night. But Yeah, give us a quick preview
Michigan State,
on.
Nebraska went to overtime.
Yeah, there's just been so many. Just give us a quick preview on Indiana, Illinois, because it is, you kind of look at trends. Illinois is still ranked, what, seventh or ninth? Seventh and ninth, I think, in the major polls. But like, to me, if I was a fan looking at it, I go, man, those two losses in a row might fire them up for Indiana. But what kind of opportunity and matchup that Indiana can take advantage of against Illinois?
Yeah, I don't know of a lot of advantages, I would say, or something you could take advantage of against Illinois. I mean, this is the most efficient offense in the country, right? According to KenPom, 130.6 offensive efficiency. So, Wilkerson's going to have to be going. DeVries is going to have to be hunting shots. I just don't see a world where DeVries gets to play kind of the connector role and Indiana wins this game. Like, it's been awesome to see him have to reinvent himself, but for Indiana to be in that upper echelon of the Big Ten, Tucker DeVries has to be a star, and he hasn't been lately. I think depending on what Enright can do against Keaton Wagler, this could be a pretty interesting game. I'm not sure what the health status of Kylan Boswell is. I don't know that he's coming back anytime soon. But offensively, you're just going to have to be going. And Illinois is dead last in defensive turnover percentage. So you can't have self-inflicted wounds. You can't, have miscommunications on cuts and throw the ball out of bounds. Like, Illinois is not necessarily going to force you to turn the ball over. So if you give them turnovers offensively, they're going to go and take advantage of it. I think, like I said, Enright's going to have to be great on Wagler like he's been on all the other great guards they've played this season. But on the wing, I really feel like this is a game where you get Tucker DeVries going early. Obviously, Stojakovic and Mirkovic and these guys.
Stojakovic didn't play last night. He was questionable on the injury report. Didn't play last night. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye out on the injury report because I just looked it up. I remember his dad torching the Knicks way back when. Everybody torched the Knicks way back when. But, he's averaging over 20, 25 minutes a game, and it's a big piece of that. Big piece of that offense. So, he's not the dead-eye three-point shooter like his dad is, but he's shooting 50% from the field.
Yeah.
Gets to the line fairly often and gives them a little bit on defense as well. But, he played against Michigan State. I think he got hurt in that game and then was questionable last night and didn't play. So, to me, Illinois is one of those teams that you can't give them extra possessions. It's kind of like Indiana football's offense. If you give them extra possessions, that's how you end up like Oregon and getting smoked. Where Miami didn't do that, and you stayed in it, and you have your chance. Don't make mistakes, and you have a chance. But the way Lamar's shooting, I think it gives you a chance to beat anybody. And that's what we said coming into the season. If you hit three-pointers at a clip that IU can hit them, you have a chance against anybody. But again, if you turn the ball over on the road in a place that'll be fired up to be playing you, it could snowball real quick. Let's talk about the second Purdue game. Matt, Indiana beat Purdue, hung on to beat Purdue. That was they hung on for dear life in that game a couple weeks ago. But Purdue's kind of been sliding a little bit. They opened the season at number 1. They're 20-4 right now, and they are ranked 13th. They lost last night in overtime. I think fans were robbed of a great ending because nobody mopped up the sweat from the Purdue huddle, and Nebraska's guys' feet just went out from under them. And look, I wasn't rooting for anybody, but with 5 seconds left in overtime of a 1-point game, you kind of want somebody to get a shot off. So they go as Braden Smith goes, and they beat Oregon by 4 at home. They needed a last-second 3. They destroyed Maryland, who stinks. They lost by 5 to IU in Bloomington. They lose at home to Illinois. They lost at UCLA. So they kind of been scuffling. They beat Southern Cal at Southern Cal by 5. So they kind of been scuffling. And I do think, even though Purdue has some big guys, IU matches up pretty decently against them. And we saw it in Bloomington. IU just has better athletes, I think. You have the big Ophie guys at Purdue, but they foul. And if IU shoots well, they could go in there and win. It's going to be a tough ask. It's going to be a tough ask to even split these 2 games. Where do you think IU falls up at Mackey?
Yeah, Purdue is such a difficult.
Yeah, this game is
to
next Friday, the 20th, by the way.
Oh, wow. So Indiana plays Sunday at Illinois and then Friday at Purdue?
Yeah. It is
there's a good time for rest in there. Like that's what this team needs right now is a little bit of rest. And granted, this is a tough stretch, but the amount of time between games is definitely big.
Yep. You have, what is it? Basically 1 game in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Between the Oregon and Purdue games.
Yeah, that's nice. But looking at Purdue, and especially against Nebraska last night, Purdue was up. I felt like they were up 15 points on 2 different occasions. And
they were up 14 points with 2 minutes left, or 2:10 left. And they were up 16 points at halftime.
Exactly. And there were just points where obviously Nebraska got hot shooting. That's part of it. But where Nebraska just decided to shut down the paint. And like you kind of mentioned, Clough and kind of Kaufman-Wren, those Ophie guys, like you said, when you're able to take them out and Purdue isn't hitting shots from the outside, like that's how Nebraska got back into that game on 2 different occasions in the second half.
Yeah, they were down 22 at one point. Fletcher Lawyer had a close to a John Starks performance as you could get at 4 for 17 from downtown. Braden Smith was his usual self again, but only 33% from behind the arc, had 10 assists, turned it over just once. But when he's going, they're going. And if you're going to miss 13 3-pointers as an individual, you're going to give the opponent a chance to come back.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like you said, they go as Braden Smith goes. And when they were in Assembly Hall, Connor Enright, he didn't take Braden Smith away because that's almost impossible to do, but he made everything
for
difficult.
Half.
Yeah, he didn't have an assist at halftime, which is, I don't know that he's done that in his entire 8-year career at Purdue. So Enright's going to be key. He's going to play 40 minutes again. Like, that's just how it goes. And I think one of the keys to how Indiana won at home was they just played harder than Purdue did. Like, I think Matt Painter said that in the press conference after. He was like, we just got out-physicaled, out-hustled. Like, Indiana just played harder than us. So I think that starts with Enright, and it's got to be sort of infectious to the rest of the team. So combine that with how Lamar Wilkerson's playing. Like we said, this team can be in a game with anybody, but it is a tough ask. And, Sam Alexis has to keep being really good without getting in foul trouble.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up, is the foul situation, at least over. And a lot of it is, look, you put yourself into the hands of Big Ten referees, which it seems like the rules change every other media timeout. but if you put yourself into the hands of the referee, especially the way IU plays defense, they're physical. They don't really move their feet much. They reach. You're going to get whistled. I think they've done a lot better job during this stretch, where it's been winning 5 out of 6 of not getting into foul trouble as much. But you cannot have one of these games where Lamar, I think it was a USC, where he picked up the dumb foul on the fast break, where he just reached in to get his first foul, and a couple minutes later he gets it was a legit foul, but it was a second foul. But you can't just give away fouls like that and he was hot at USC early in the game, and then IU scored 5 points the rest of the half. You know, Tucker DeVries got 3 tough fouls against him against Oregon. One of them looked like a held ball that I didn't watch the TV broadcast. I have no idea how that ended up as a shooting foul. But like me and Brian Tonsoni, who does assembly call stuff, looked at each other, go, "What? Like, it was a held ball." And it was like, at what point was it? Did somebody get called for attack? Like, what? How is that a shooting foul? But more to the point, Indiana just has to play more active on defense and move their feet, because it seems like they get beat off the ball, reach, or kind of get frustrated if they turn the ball over and reach in and foul on that way, or try to get that cheap steal. One of the things I asked DeVries preseason was about the defense. He said he didn't make calls on fouls, and they didn't really have referees come in. And I think maybe that kind of hurts if you don't really know what a foul is in the Big Ten anyway. But maybe if you had referees there in preseason, you kind of get a better idea. But yeah, these are the games where you have to have your best players got to stay on the floor. Connor Enright was great against Braden Smith in the first matchup, but if he picks up a couple fouls early, especially up there, that crowd's going to go nuts, and again, it could snowball. But in each of these games, there is a path to an IU victory. You just have to be efficient in it.
Yeah, for sure. I still think I think Reed Bailey was good in the first Purdue game, but if Sam Alexis is in foul trouble and plays less than 27 minutes, something like that, this team might be in some trouble just because of the size and physicality that he's brought in the last 2 weeks or so, which Reed Bailey has not provided in those kind of supplementary minutes. So if Alexis is missing big stretches of this game, and you have DeVries on Kaufman-Renn or something like that, some mismatch that Purdue likes, we saw it in Assembly Hall. Like, they just went to the Smith Kaufman-Renn pick and roll over and over again. That's how they got back into that game before Indiana was able to close it out. So best guys have to stay on the floor, and best guys have to show up in the best possible way.
Yep, I agree with that. Any final thoughts, Matt?
No, I think Indiana's in a good spot going forward. In all honesty, I mentioned, or we mentioned, basically playing one game over the course of 2 weeks with this tough schedule, and then we saw it with Rutgers, which I like to call kind of a get-right game, and then they beat Purdue and UCLA, which after this Illinois and Purdue stretch, you get Northwestern, and then hopefully see how things go against Michigan State, but then you get to hopefully vindicate yourself against Minnesota and a good game against Ohio State before you go into postseason play. So schedule-wise, hopefully health-wise, I think things are shaping up to be headed in the right direction for the NCAA tournament, hopefully.
Yeah, just a handful of games left this season. Indiana's next matchup is against number 7 Illinois on Sunday, February 15th at 1 p.m. This game is on CBS. Then followed that at 5 days later, Friday, February 20th on Fox, 8 p.m. up in West Lafayette against Purdue, number 13 Purdue. And we'll see. After that, you get March is almost here. Your next home game is February 24th. Then you have a whiteout game against Michigan State. Finish the home schedule March 4th, and then a big one at Ohio State on March 7th before the Big Ten tournament on March 10th up in Chicago, Illinois, which has never really gone well for Indiana, no matter where they held the Big Ten tournament, but especially in Chicago. Matt, thank you for joining us today. You can follow us at Hoosier_Huddle on Twitter. Matt, where can we find you on Twitter as well?
Matt_St. Charles.
All right. And you can read Matt's stuff at HoosierHuddle.com as well. And we'll have all the basketball, football, baseball, softball, all IU spring sports as well covered. Enjoy the warm weather, and we'll talk to you next week.